So we just got done replacing the turbo on the 2011 Freightliner Coronado with the DD15, and unfortunately I've got bad news. So you guys saw the damage of the turbo. It was cracked from wear and tear, excessive heat. So I looked all of this manifold, all over it, from this side to this side, and even this intersection, and I could not find a place where it was cracked otherwise. Well, we got the new turbo put in and fired it up, and it is squealing. Not the turbo itself, but I think it's from an exhaust leak. I mean, it could be from a turbo itself. So unfortunately, the turbo did not solve this problem, but the turbo is definitely bad. So we're thinking that we have an exhaust manifold. But so basically showing you how to replace your turbo on your your DD15. We're gonna basically tear all of this back off and replace the exhaust manifold, which is gonna be a pain in the butt because I don't want to tear this all back off. It was kind of a pain to get it back on, but that's where we're at. So anyways, guys, that's for you, the viewer, that's a successful way to replace your turbo. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't a success for me because I've got cracked manifolds. So I have those, and the part 2 will be us replacing the exhaust manifold, which, you know, is exactly the reverse and forward step of the turbo, because you gotta take the turbo off, put it back on to do the exhaust manifold. So it'll kind of be like redoing the same job. All right, so we're gonna be getting to this exhaust manifold and getting it all replaced. So we've got all the heat shields pulled off, the brand new turbo, just trying to cover these inlets to keep protected. And I just put new coolant in here, so I'm trying to salvage what I got and put it back into the containers it came in, because there we go. So I'm trying to salvage the coolant I got, because I literally just put the coolant in here when we did the turbo. Then we found out it was probably the exhaust manifolds that also were cracked. So now we're gonna try to reuse all this coolant, or at least 9 out of 10 gallons probably. It's not spend another $100, but yeah. So we're gonna drain the coolant, and then we'll start tearing off stuff over here and take the turbo off first. We gotta undo the coolant line, and then undo the oil feed and drain line down there, and we'll go from there. All right, so we got the turbo pulled off, and now we're gonna work on this EGR controller cooler. Basically turns the flat for the EGR. There's 3 bolts here. I put some PB blaster on it, hopefully loosens them up. And then there's a bracket right here that holds this to the center exhaust manifold. We're gonna hopefully pull that off. Hopefully these bolts don't break, because this one was already broken since I had the truck. So hopefully this bolt and then this bolt back here will allow us to take that off, and then we'll start taking off the exhaust manifold right there. So got the turbo pulled off. It's over here. Brand new turbo. Was hoping it'd stay on a little bit longer, but it's all good. All right, so we got the exhaust manifold pulled off, as you can see, and the back bolt right here is a little bit of a pain, and then managed to break one off right here, if you can see it right there. I drilled into it. I gotta get a reverse drill bit. I think it's moving, so I should be able to walk it the rest of the way back out. Other than that, everything else went pretty well. Just waiting on some parts, and then tomorrow we'll get back out here, undo this broken bolt, and then install a new manifold, and then reinstall the new turbo, and we should be good to go. All right, guys, so we had this stuck bolt inside the head. What we did first is use a drill bit drilled in the center. Mine's actually a little bit off center. Drilled a hole, use some lube so it stays down temperature, and then this easy out reverse screw kit. We used one of these and basically hammered it into the bolt, or, you know, the stud. And then what you do is you hammer it in there as soon as you get a big enough hole. And then you're just gonna slowly turn it loose, and you see how it's actually coming out. See if I can get an angle on that so you guys can see. So you see it's turning little by little. And the key with this is get it center, which I did not get it center. I realized that because it kept walking and I got impatient, but basically get this in here and you just turn this broken stud head bolt out. And then we'll clean up the threads. I'll use a tap if I have to clean the threads, if I drilled a little bit too far over. As you can see, I'm way off center on this guy, but hopefully it'll work. And then we can continue. So I'll screw this the rest of the way out, and we'll clean all these thread holes out with a little brush, and then we'll start putting the exhaust manifold back on. So this is a disaster diverted. This could be really bad, but usually I've been able to get these out. It's nice if you break off a little bit over the surface, you just weld on a nut to it, but this one broke off inside, so that's what we have to work with. But this is how you do it. Just be careful, take your time, use a couple different drill bits. Also using a tap or a center punch helps, and then not a tap, but using a center punch to get center, and then putting the drill in to start drilling a little bit of a hole. You don't have to go very deep. This is literally not even 1/8 of an inch deep, but it was enough to get it going. All right, so there you go. That's what it looks like. Like I said, I'm way off center. I'm actually in danger of messing up some of those threads, but it should be all right. Look at the hole in there and kind of make sure it's not damaged. I'll thread another bolt in to see, make sure we're good. All right, guys, so as you know, we're replacing the exhaust manifolds, and this has been kind of the adventure of learning how to make this work and whatnot. So this is obviously my 2011 Freightliner Coronado, and on the 2011, 2010, I think a couple models, the first years of the DD15s, they put this 5-piece manifold, and what they did is they retro upgraded it to this version right here. And they have these small bolts right here that went on the end pieces on the older setup, and these were like, they want to charge like $100 a piece for these, $150 a piece actually. So I was like, what the heck, what's going on? So then we got the new manifold, and if you see here, basically these are the longer bolts that was on the center section of the manifold. So this would be the left side, and there'd be another side on that side, and you know, these were supposed to be the center section. Well, on the new improved version, like the part supersedes to this new manifold, which is on all of the standard DD15s from like 2013 above, I think. So like this truck will have the same manifold like this one from the factory. Well, something they don't show you or tell you is that when you try to use so these are the old shorter bolts, so you see the difference here. That's the difference in length. Well, we want to go try to put this on, this manifold on, but it's a lot thicker down here. So you turn them like this, basically, and you try to put this bolt through, there's not a whole lot of purchase there, so there's not a whole lot of real estate to hold it into place. And especially if you use one of these thicker spacers like this here. Sorry, I'm just trying to do this one-handed. All right, so if you see that we do the longer spacer, it doesn't even go through very much at all. So when you do this upgrade, or if you have to do exhaust manifold on an early DD15 and they supersede you to this later model, you have to use the longer bolts, not the short ones. Because if you see here, I'll show you the difference. So you see the difference in thickness there. So these risers are way thicker. If I put it side by side, sit right like that, and you see the old one and the new one. There's that much difference in thickness. So anyways, just thought I'd show you guys that. We're going to start bolting this back onto the motor, put the gasket on, which I have there, and then we can get going. But this is a very important, you know, kind of you know, service bulletin that I wish more of the Freightliner dealerships told you about, but they don't even tell you that this needs to be done. They'll tell you this if you're lucky, and then they'll tell you you need these small bolts, 8 of them, and then 4 of the long ones for the center section. But in reality, you actually need all of the long bolts because these are thicker, and they'll try to sell you these bolts for $100 a piece if you're lucky. So yeah, this is something you need to know if you have an early DD15 and you need to replace the exhaust manifolds, which I did because my center section cracked. I don't know if I showed you guys this, but the center manifold piece, see, it's thicker right here and the new one's just as thick, so you know these match up almost identically, right, like that, the size wise, whereas the older one is a lot skinnier. And right here, so if you see right there, there's a hairline crack, oh, right there going down there, and then on that side. So the center exhaust manifold did actually get damaged, so we're replacing all of it, all brand new shiny silver. And then it'll probably look like that because it'll get rusted real fast, just like the turbo already looks like that. All right, so here we got the new exhaust manifold on, nice and shiny and new from back there all the way up here. And there's a specific torque sequence for the bolts on here. So if you search online, you can find a service bulletin. I might be able to post it on the screen here. And you're basically going to do like a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4 on the center, and then move to the outer 1, 2, 3, 4, and then move to the backs. And pretty pertinent that you do that sequencing. And also with all these bolts, we put this high temp anti-seize on them. Also the service bulletin calls for that, so we're going to follow that. And basically to get these lined up perfectly, they want you to do this torque sequence so that you don't squish these bellows right here. Those are most important, that if you do it out of sequence, it might pinch those. You get a real loud squeal. I know that because I had that on one of my other trucks. So, all right, we'll get this torqued down. All right, so we finally got everything put back together. This was a huge pain, especially having to do it twice. We originally replaced the turbo and then it was still squealing. So now we have coolant in it. We have a new exhaust manifold. You see that nice gray metal over there, and then over here, and then you know this heat shield's covering most of it. But so we got everything put back together: airbox, CAC inlet. Basically, we got the heat shielding back on. Got the EGR controller and EGR the EGR flapper valve deal. So yeah, so now I guess take 2, we're gonna fire it up and hopefully we have no exhaust leaks. That'll be awesome if that's the case, because I am sick of tearing this truck apart and putting it back together. We should be good. Place everything that I think could be our culprits, and plus I showed you guys the manifold was cracked, so good thing we took it back off. Alright guys, so to summarize, I just want to make a quick point because it got a little confusing there about the exhaust manifold. So if you've got a later DD15, this doesn't concern you. This is for everybody out there who has the earlier DD15s. I don't know exactly what years, but I think, you know, 2009, 2010, 11, 12. So when you go and try to get exhaust manifolds for these earlier DD15s, the dealership is going to come up with a 5-piece manifold, which I showed you a diagram of that before. I can put it on the screen now as well. So this you're seeing is a 5-piece manifold. So they do not know some of the parts places don't know how to look up the right thing or the superseded part number. So the superseded part number is going to be, it'll supersede to a 3-piece manifold, which I'll show on the screen right here. This is the diagram for that. Some of your parts guys will know this, some of them will not. And the correct part number, which I'll put on the screen here with a picture, if you have an earlier model with the 5-piece manifold, you can get these part numbers, or just tell them these are the part numbers you need and they should work. Which the first one is the 2 end pieces of the manifold. They're both the same, and you just flip them upside down to fit left and then right side. So they're the same for the outer ends, they're both the same. One just gets flipped and the other one stays the normal augmentation. And that part number on the screen here is Alpha 47214011914. And then also the center section you'll see below on the parts list here is Alpha 47214200901. So that is what you need. Now, after you get this, this will be the next problem, is they'll on their side of on the parts side of Detroit, if I don't know if this has been superseded yet or not, or if this has been made they've been made aware of this yet, but they'll try to sell you the shorter bolts for the outer 8 exhaust so for the 2 end pieces essentially. And on the stock manifold, which the stock manifold doesn't exist anymore, it supersedes this new one, they'll try to sell you smaller bolts, and those are going to be way too small. They're going to be about an inch and a half too small. So when you go to get this manifold, you just want to tell them you want the bolts from the center section for the outer sections, and they have a thick spacer, and they're a lot longer bolt. Well, not a lot longer, but you know, it's about an inch or two difference, which as I showed you in the video, it leaves you like this much going inside of the block, or even this much, so that's not enough. With a longer bolt, you actually have a good amount of securement. So this is something that not a lot of parts guys know about, and I kind of didn't get any help from either my dealership or the Detroit dealers around me. They kind of just they didn't want some of these $100 bolts. The small bolts are $100 a piece, whereas the normal bolts are like $14 a piece. So this will save you some money as well, because I was like, oh crap, I really got to spend $1,000 on bolts. And then I go to try to put them into those end pieces, and they're thicker. The manifold is this thick, and the older manifold's like this thick. So the riser on the new manifold is thicker than the old manifold. So I know it's a lot of information, but this might help some of you guys out there a lot, because I've heard that these manifolds end up cracking and breaking. Same with the turbos. My truck had 500,000 miles on it and this happened. So, you know, I don't know how hard of a life it had before I got it, but it seems like it was in pretty good shape. So, you know, if you're approaching that 500,000 mile mark in your earlier DD15, we're talking pre-2012, I think. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but around 2012, 2013, they went to that. A lot of DD15 stuff kind of changed over to the new style. There's some other stuff that is still stays, you know, like different from a newer DD15 to like the older DD15s. There's a lot of different parts like oil separators and stuff like that that looks the same, but it's a little bit different. So, all right, guys, hopefully that helps you out there. You know, I just kind of want to make this quick video kind of describing what I was saying in the video when I'm showing you the parts, so you can kind of get the right parts. This took about a week and a half, because you know, every time I get a part and I try it out, it would be wrong, and I had to wait, you know, a day or two to get it overnighted. So this repair actually, and then also I put the turbo on, had to take the turbo back off, because you know, I realized it wasn't the new turbo. So you know, if you're doing this job, I'd probably replace the turbo if you're already doing it. Save yourself the time and hassle, order all the parts, get the longer bolts. The center section is going to call for those longer bolts. So if you get the newer exhaust ends, just ask for those same bolts that are on the center section. And while you're there at the parts store or the dealership, you know, line them up, make sure they match. You know, it's pretty easy to do. That's what we did there. And you know, when we saw those $100 bolts, we couldn't tell the difference between those ones and the long ones, other than those ones were shorter. And that's probably why Detroit's selling for so much, because they're like, hey, nobody uses these anymore, so we're going to overcharge for pretty much an obsolete part that we probably don't make very much of. So that's probably why they're trying to charge so much, which the dealership wasn't trying to gouge me. I mean, Detroit sold it to them for like under $100, just under $100. So they're giving it to me like 5% over cost, just about. So yeah, don't find yourself in a situation. Hopefully this helps you guys out. As always, thanks for watching, and let me know your comments down below if you've done this repair before and ran into some of these similar problems. This video is getting a little bit long, but hopefully it's truly helpful and informative to some of you guys out there that have these earlier DD15s, just navigating the struggles and hassles with them. But we're getting through it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.